with the fake, delusional, and disingenuous. He stands as a beacon of truth. He is Abuki Cabal. You are listening to Abuki Cabal.
Welcome to the Abuki Cabal Show.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're going to talk about something that I wanted to talk about for a while. And that's that controversy surrounding Kevin's last show where people were all hyped up about the leftover women as if he made this up himself. And there was nothing behind it, no truth to it. But we're going to get into where this leftover woman title came from. And, he didn't make that up. I think we've talked about this before. I think I talked about this a while back where we were discussing why governments were talking about women, these leftover women, and what effect it would have on society as a whole for them. China is where this title came from, and as you can see here on the thumbnail, that the Chinese population is having a bit of a problem because they have tried to hinder the amount of children that could be had by a family in the past. So they are having to take measures to ensure that they have enough male children and enough children, period, in order to defend their country, in order to continue with infrastructure and other plans for the future, as well as having to sustain their economy in the foreseeable future, like other countries. So you see in the South China Morning Post, they did an article about the Chinese population and the county sparks uproar by telling leftover women to marry unemployed men. Then you have an article here. This was from 2016, where the title of it in Vogue magazine, "Leftover Women: What It's Like to Be a Successful Unmarried Woman in China." Says a 4-minute documentary was basically played exploring the pressures placed on single women in China, and it was released. And the term for a leftover woman is Sheng in China, and they were exploring what this term meant. Okay. There's a third article also talking about leftover women and the changing attitudes towards marriage in China. This is not just China. This is the same thing in North Korea, some of the other places where, traditionally marriage was a institution that was undertaken early. Now women are doing the same thing that American women are doing, is waiting later in life to have children, to marry and have families. And we all know that families are the backbone of any nation. You have to have families. You have to have some stability everything has its place. I mean, everybody can't be, level up girls and whatnot. There has to be a stable a group of people in the country that have a more conservative lifestyle. And you have, the others who are, a little bit more for the street, but everything has to be balanced, So let's take a look at that in a little bit more detail. Okay. You see the first article, and this is in the economy, China macro economy, and can't pronounce her name, but there it is. This was January 2022, and Chinese population, county sparks uproar, telling leftover women to marry unemployed men. Okay, and this is, I can't pronounce the county. And can't pronounce the province. If you guys can help me with that, that'd be great. Province is encouraging women to marry unemployed men with offers of special training and treatment for potential husbands. Now, this is interesting. Okay. We have the same situation in the Black community where the Monahan Report and all information after that, has said that basically there is a greater need in Black men and boys than what we've currently been doing, which is basically more and more funding for girls, and women in our community, as well as white women in our community. They get all of the programs, all of the support, all of the monetary funding for whatever they feel like they need to have in order to compete with men. There's quotas for how many people, how many women they gotta have to have in whatever occupation. We need more female professors in all of these different areas. We need more female studies to basically retrain men to treat women better, and all of this repackaging and rebranding of history and what our supposed oppressive nature throughout history. And that's why women, supposedly don't take these jobs and don't do this and don't do that. We know all those stories. Okay. So China has taken a different approach here, which is the approach that was advocated by Monahan back in the 60s. And that was to basically offer incentives and training and education to these Black men so that they can lead their households as husbands. All right. So as you can see, I'm going to read this again. It says that basically China will be encouraging women to marry unemployed men with offers of special training and treatment for potential husbands. So that means that they may be unemployed, but they're going to, provide programs in order for these men to be able to take care of these wives, okay, and themselves and their families, okay. The other aspect of it is China is grappling with a declining marriage and birth rate, which has prompted a flurry of policies from local governments to address the issues. Now, we here in the United States, we're not, we have the same data that's happening here, as well as China and these other countries watching the great experiment that is feminism, and its effects on our society. And again, like in my last video where we talked about North Korea, we're seeing the same types of efforts going into this decline in marriage because of the adoption of Western feminism by their women, which is causing them to say, "Hey, I don't need to get married. I can go out here and I can make all of this money, and I can basically be a man in the economy and socially, and I can get married later. I can have babies later, and put everything off." So you find it at the same later type of mindset is starting to infect these other countries, and that's the way they look at it, as an external threat and an external infection, And as we see this Western feminism spread throughout the world, we're seeing the same types of effects happening with their societies, on a smaller scale. So they see it happening over here, and then they see in their countries, and they go, "Look, we don't want that. We need our population to be stable. We need a stable backbone. We need families. We need children in order to ensure our future." And if you look at that on a grander scale, humanity needs that for it to continue to exist. Yet we have all of these, excuse me, external threats against a traditional family lifestyle. We have, this. We also have the LGBT Q, XYZ, whatever else they've added to it, groups, and I liken it to vampires. If you turn everybody into a vampire, then what are vampires going to eat? You know what I mean? So if everybody, if all of the women, or a large majority of the women start to think that, they don't need men, then we're going to have smaller and smaller, populations, not enough children. And once we hit a certain number, I can't remember what that number is, but once we hit a certain number, then the population, the indigenous population of whatever country it is, becomes unsustainable. So they know this. That's why, you're starting to see that this is becoming a defense issue. It's becoming an economic issue. And the cabinets in those in whatever government for whatever country, they're all looking at these numbers. So they're not saying it because it's not politically correct to say that, but that is a factor. And it's the same thing with, like I said, the other, the LGBTQ and all of that. They those numbers are on an increase in our country, and don't think that they're not looking at that in their countries and saying, okay, it's enough that we're having to deal with our women not wanting to be married, and now we'll start having men and women wanting to be or identifying as opposite of what they are, and that takes its toll on birth rates as well. So again, excuse me, if those numbers are increasing, again, it's like, a vampire scenario. If everybody is turning, trans, gay, and bi, then, or queer, then what, what's to become of the normal people out here? You need normal people to give birth to children who can potentially, become whatever it is that you choose to identify as, which, I have my own issues with that as well. It's just illogical to me, but it's the same scenario, and it becomes a selfish situation. We all have a duty as humans, to perpetuate the species, But it's becoming, I think we're becoming so comfortable in society, seeking luxury, that is no longer an issue for some. Things have become so easy that easy things have become complicated. So can't read this whole article because I'm not going to pay that. But I'll read this little piece here. It says a county in China has sparked controversy over offering a host of incentives to encourage leftover women to marry, including with unemployed men. Local media have reported amid rising concerns about the country's dwindling birth rate. Can't pronounce the county, can't pronounce the province, is offering preferential treatment for housing, employment, as well as birth allowances to women and their partners, according to a report in Shanghai-based media, The Paper. At present, the phenomenon of older female cadres and workers remaining single in our country has become a very prominent problem, which urgently needs to be addressed, apparently is where they're going with this. So, and if you go down on this same, and I'll add this to the links, here's another one. China's population crisis prompts county to play Cupid and pair up unwed singles. Okay. All right, I'll read a little bit of that. Okay, parents of single children are also expected to take advantage of matchmaking corners in high traffic areas where posters may be hung with personal information for others to review. National and regional policies like these aim to address China's declining marriage and birth rates. So this is a problem that's only been getting worse. This one was December the 28th, 2021. A county in northern China is collecting information from singles to build an official database for matchmaking purposes, a local official said, as the nation faces dire demographic prospects. In response to a citizen's question on the official message board for leaders website operated by people.cn, the party boss of Luanzhou in northern province of Hebei said the county had been distributing application forms for matchmaking activities since November the 18th. All right. So there you have it. So dire demographic prospects. Okay, here's one. Not pertaining to our topic. Let me see. Oh, did it switch on me? Oh, crap. Switched on me. Sorry about that, folks. There it is. Okay. Let me see if it'll bring up those dire demographic prospects there. Yep, it did. So you guys can click on that too, but let's go through this a little bit here. No, that might be a little bit too dense, but I'll encourage you guys to go ahead and or I'll put that in the link section myself. I'll do that. Okay. So here you go. And this has all of the stats on their population crisis and what they're trying to do. So I'll let you go through that. All right. Here's another article, and this is from the Institute for Security and Development Policy. And this talks about leftover women and the changing attitudes towards marriage. Okay. Okay, it says, in line with the global trend of decline and delay of marriage, the number of millennials in China who are postponing or even rejecting marriage is growing. Between 2013 and 2019, the number of Chinese people getting married for the first time decreased by 41%, while the average age of marriage has risen in the past decades. The traditional view on women marrying young seems to have endured. Women in China are sometimes called leftover if they remain unmarried after the age of 27. Although demographic changes have been cited as one of the main reasons for China's decline in marriage rate, the drop is as a result of social and economic changes, which seems to have altered many women's attitudes towards marriage. All right. A looming population crisis. Demographers have for many years warned of a future population crisis in China, as the population is expected to decline due to decreased birth rates. In the coming decades, while the aging population is growing and the workforce is shrinking, this forecast is probably the reason why the one child policy introduced in 1979 to reduce the population's growth rate was relaxed in 2016. The one child policy caused a severe gender imbalance. And that imbalance was in favor of women. If I'm not mistaken, let me see. Okay, it says, like most Asian nations, China has a traditional bias for sons. Many families abort female fetuses and abandon baby girls. Okay, so no, it was in favor of boys, so there wasn't enough females, but okay, baby girls to ensure their one child is a son, so about 118 boys are born for every 100 girls against global average of 103 to 107. Okay. Wow. So that was the other way around. That's an interesting read as well. There's a link on that. You guys can click on that. There's a lot of good data here. All right. So where were we? Severe gender imbalance. As the traditional preference for having sons made couples abort. So it's saying the same thing. Abort females and abandon baby girls to make sure that their only child will be a male. As a result, there are about 30 million more men than women in China today, which is particularly noticeable in rural areas. Rapid urbanization has further spurred the gender imbalance in rural regions as many women move to the cities to find work. Okay. Now, I mean, that goes to something else that we hear a lot. And the reason why they want these men is because they need workers. You know, they need soldiers. They need, people to build things and to do the hard work. And that's why, they tend to not want girls and favor boys because, again, BGS has talked about agrarian societies and the role of men and in past nations and in the nations that we currently historically are living in. There is a need for men in societies in order for societies to grow and to defend themselves. You just can't get around that, and these new social ideals don't take that into consideration. All right. So So some have argued that the decline in marriage rates mainly is a result of the decrease in the number of marriageable men, more marriageable people due to the one-child policy. However, despite the relaxation of the one-child policy, both marriage and birth rates have continued to decrease. This trend seems to worry the Chinese government, which is urging people to have more children, possibly as a way to prevent the looming population crisis, which would most likely affect economic and social stability in China. Last year, an official from the Ministry of Civil Affairs stated that the decline in marriage affects birth rates, while arguing that reproduction and marriage are closely related. The official said that social policies would be improved and that propaganda efforts would be enhanced to guide the public to establish positive values on love, marriage, and family. Moreover, state media have also stressed that giving birth is not only a family matter, but also a state matter. Okay, now it goes further to talk about the leftover label. Okay, historically, there has been a long tradition of women marrying at a young age in China. While the average marriage age for urban women marrying for their first time was just under 20 in the 1950s, it had risen to 25 in the 1980s. Although today the average age is around 27, single and unmarried females in China that are 27 years old or more are sometimes labeled Sheng, which translate into English as leftover woman. The term was used in 2007 by the state-backed All China Women's Federation when referring to unmarried women above the age of 27. That same year, China's Ministry of Education included the term in its official lexicon. Since then, the term has been commonly used in online discussions and headlines, not seldom as a way of criticizing women that are highly educated and considered to be too picky when it comes to looking for a partner. And herein lies Kevin's question, which was, are Black women becoming leftover women? You know, same thing for white women. There are a lot of leftover. If you use that term, that Chinese term, there are women who find themselves in that situation, but find themselves in that situation and see nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Regardless of all of the data that says that basically, you know, the later you have children, you know, the more problems you're going to have associated with trying to have children. And I just came across some information about a study that was done talking about Black women, where Black women tend to have children, have easier births when they're in their teens rather than when they're in their 20s. And, you know, if you just think about that and our history in this country, you know, there may be some correlation with, us breeding and the working conditions, us being bred and the working conditions that we became accustomed to as a result of being brought here. So I'm going to see if I can try to find that and do some, do a show on that as well. Let's see. Okay. State media have also used the term, which has stigmatized educated unmarried women above the age of 27. A big share of these women live in urban areas, are highly educated, and leading professional lives. Nevertheless, many are still being measured by traditional values. When it comes to marriage, in which their intellectual and professional achievements are seldom taken into account. It's because we don't care. Men don't care about your professional achievements, or your, how much money you make, or, you being super smart in whatever it is, because that's not what we're just not built to find that interesting. Okay. Against this backdrop, it seems like the traditional view of women marrying young has endured, even though the average age of marriage has risen over the years. Social changes and shifting attitudes. China's drastic decrease in marriage rate is, in addition to demographic changes, also a result of women becoming more educated and economically independent, which seems to have caused changes in their attitudes towards marriage. And they have a link there for that. Oh, lots of great links for you guys to explore about these attitudes, all underlined. You see there, like that. Says, indeed, more women feel that marriage is not their only option in life. Self-development and a good career are some of the goals that many women strive to pursue before getting married, which in turn may delay or even rule out marriage. Gender inequality probably also makes young Chinese women think twice before getting married. The decreased desire to marry seems to coincide with traditional gender norms and patriarchal traditions, which are deeply rooted among many men and parents-in-law. Such attitudes include the expectation of women doing most of the housework and taking care of the children, even when working full-time at the same time. Job discrimination against women is common in China, which makes it difficult for women to handle both a career and having children. Gender inequality, traditional gender norms, and roles in marriage could thereby be viewed as another driving force behind women's changed attitude to marriage. To stigmatize single women as leftover could be argued to serve the opposite purpose of acknowledging and being sensitive to the ways in which women want to lead their lives. It also seems that the changed perceptions and attitudes towards marriage among many Chinese people, particularly young women, could be at odds with the push by the state to raise marriage and birth rates to avert the approaching population crisis. The stigma and the lingering traditional gender norms and roles would most likely need to be further acknowledged and phased out to make marriage equally desirable and beneficial for both women and men, not only for the sake of the individual women, but also for society as a whole. Okay, good article. All right. I'm going to check that out. And here's the last one here from Vogue. And this is the unmarried and over 27 in China that makes you a leftover woman. Okay. And apparently there was a documentary that was made about this. And it's a short article. I'll go ahead and add it. Okay. So Vogue says, when a 4-minute documentary style video exploring the pressures placed on single women in China was released in April, the term Sheng, which translates into English as leftover women, was new to the rest of the world, but for the millennial Chinese woman, it was an all too familiar concept. Sheng, which refers to any woman over the age of 27 who is still single, applies to a growing body of women seeking education, economic freedom, and a more unconventional life path than their parents. But despite the progressive movement, the message from society remains unchanged. If you're not married, you're doing something wrong. If you look before 2007, there wasn't this extraordinary anxiety surrounding marriage that Lita Hong Fincher, a consultant on the documentary and author of Leftover Woman, The Resurgence of Gender Inequality in China. She believes that the Chinese government, concerned with creating a so-called high-quality workforce that can compete in the global market, coined the phrase as a part of an aggressive propaganda campaign to coerce educated women out of the workforce and into matrimony and motherhood. With falling birth rates and much speculation on the impact of China's economy, Venture argues that the government is deliberately frightening women into believing that if they delay marriage, no one will want to marry them at all. The government doesn't have to say that. Look, men are not going out here falling over themselves looking. It's for older women who don't want to have kids and who are career driven and see them as a secondary option. Men are not looking for that. We all know that. Now some men have been conditioned to think that, they want a super smart woman who, can do everything that they do, and that brings in, just as much money into the house as them and all of that. But, all of that, you cannot have it all. To make that kind of money requires you being out there and dedicating a lot of time to that. And a lot of that time is going to be also required to entertain that woman or, that man that you are married to. That's just a fact. Or they're going to feel like, why am I married in the first place? Who's going to raise our kids when we're both out here humping and trying to be millionaires and trying to be educated to the max, because they don't care about you being married or having kids, whether you're in nursing school, medical school, whatever the case may be. That's a secondary thing. And if you look into it, a lot of people get divorces going through nursing school, going through medical school, 1, 2, 3 times, for different professional upgrades, and some people's significant others just say, look, I can't go through that again, because of it is stressful. As well as you going out and you're having to work. You're away from that big home and those big cars and all that stuff. You're only in them for a short amount of time. You're only driving it to get to and from work. All this stuff that you're seeing on TV, well, all these trips and sequence gowns and all that kind of stuff all through the house and this Real Housewives stuff. That's all bullshit. But that's what all of these people want. That's what you see in all these magazines. Everybody talking about beauty and all of these products that are being, catered, directed at women in order for them to go out and spend. So they're going out and trying to get that money so they can spend. And it's all, we're seeing it here in China. We're seeing it in all of these other countries that aren't really, keen on not being able to compete because, for individuals in society, yeah, that's great, but it's going to have a larger impact. And they're not looking at the macro, they're looking at the micro, they're looking at the individual. And so, like I said, there's a selfish component to this. And I don't know how this is going to be turned around, but I digress. Let me get through this article. All right. Okay. This campaign of fear, is especially effective, considering the integral role of the family within Chinese culture, rigid and hierarchical. The traditional family structure places great emphasis upon responsibility to one's family. For modern Chinese women, it's precarious balancing it's a precarious balancing act to keep the older generation satisfied as their country modernizes at an unprecedented pace. The documentary, produced by luxury Japanese skincare line SK2, which was promoted with the hashtag Changed Destiny, was created as a rally cry for young women to continue to fight for happiness on their own terms. Wow. Okay. There that is. I don't know how long that is, and I don't want to get a strike for playing it, but yeah, check that out. I'm sure they don't consider that propaganda, but that is propaganda to the other side, encouraging women to, do your own thing, you notice they don't have to, you don't see that for us, I'm sure if they had, propaganda out here trying to make us, do things that were contrary to the, the betterment of society, I'm sure, the people would have something to say about that as well. But, let's move on. One of the stars of this Al Jazeera recent documentary, China's fake boyfriends paid a handsome stranger to assuage her parents' fears about her single status. Can't say her name. A landscaper designer in her late 20s works in Beijing, about 750 miles from her home city in Harbin, East China. Each Chinese New Year, she faces a lengthy journey home and the crushing weight of parental disappointment when she arrives alone. Sheng is not a positive word, she says in the documentary, while applying a face mask and moving around her tiny apartment in a giraffe print onesie. In Chinese, it feels like someone has been abandoned. Okay. Yeah. I'll probably let you guys read. No, it's short. I'll finish it. Feels like someone's been abandoned. Also, can't say her name, finds herself trundling north, prepping her hired boyfriend with photos of her family and confirming details of their fabricated relationship, despite their preparation and the significant finances that Li Shinzi invested. The going rate for a fake boyfriend is around $150 per day. The plan quickly derails. He is too tall and too handsome for you. Her mother scoffs upon meeting him. You need a shorter, more plain man. So here you see that this 6-foot guy and super handsome guy is even frowned upon. So you see the hired boyfriend is still fitting the stereotypical archetype of the man that even Western, feminists say that they want, So there you go. These women are their mothers are encouraging them to get a normal person, a regular old guy, and that's funny. Okay, so Daniel Holmes, the filmmaker behind China's Fake Boyfriends, became intrigued by the concept of Sheng after he moved to China in 2013. Holmes worked at a news organization where most of his colleagues were young women between the age of 24 and 34 years old. They were smart, successful, and crippled by overwhelming societal stress to marry young. I'd often hear anecdotes from these friends and colleagues about the pressure they felt to settle down and how this affects their lives, Holmes remembers. On the flip side, I'd also hear gossip in the office directed towards my single female colleagues who were considered too old to ever find a partner. When I heard of the extreme measures that some people were taking to assuage their parents' fears, I wanted to take a deeper look at what drives the stigma of Sheng, how it must feel to be labeled leftover, and to show some of the cultural and historic reasons behind the term. Although Li Shengzi failed to convince her partner that she had settled down, Holmes still viewed her plan as proof that the younger generation is resisting expectation. For Li Shengji, renting a boyfriend wasn't a way of giving in to her parents' wishes. It was a way of fighting back against the pressure, and it let her continue on her career path, he says. Vivian Chow, a 38-year-old Hong Kong-based cultural critic, is upfront about the feelings of inadequacy that she and her other single friends experience. Her inner circle is full of ambitious, worldly, and highly independent women, most of whom speak several languages, and yet they believe their success is underscored by one significant failure. Society makes you feel there's something missing in your life, that you just haven't completed certain programs, she says. What most people do is go to school and get a job, save money, buy property, and get married and have kids. That's your life program, she continues. So if you don't get on with the program, then there's something missing. In Hong Kong and nearby Singapore, most of the city's inhabitants are of Chinese descent. Dynamic developed societies, their physical and political distance from mainland China has allowed a more liberal society to emerge. One woman, a 40-year-old HR director at an oil and gas company who wishes to remain anonymous, met her current partner of 8 months through an exclusive matchmaking service. She knows the term Xingnu, but says that it's not commonly used. It's not used so much in Singapore, but still they will call you a spinster. She says, explaining that her own family has gradually accepted her unconventional lifestyle, but she's still subject to a number of unflattering assumptions from her extended family and friends because of her unmarried status. They will think there's something wrong with you. You must be very picky. You may be, and maybe you are too career-minded. In the SK2 documentary style film, which went viral and has now been viewed more than 2 million times, All Ends Well. The women confront their parents in a moving scene in which they explain their decision to remain single. Tears are shed. The burden of expectation is cast aside. But as Fincher points out, this is an ad. It has to have a fairy tale ending. In part, it's inspiring because the reality is so awful. She says the marriage pressure is so incredibly intense and horrible. You have to have a very strong will and personality to withstand that kind of marriage pressure coming from all sides. Okay, so I'll end it with that. That's pretty interesting. I also have a study that was done by two Chinese scientists and Marcus Fielman, and it's the life cycle of Bear Branch families in China, a simulation study. Okay, and this goes into a little bit deeper and may be interesting as well. I'll add this to it. I'll just read the abstract here. It says, China is and will be characterized by a large number of men who are unable to marry. These men are often referred to as bare branches. Okay, so they have a term for men also. In this paper, we define the bare branch family and divide its life cycle into 3 stages: the unmarried, co-resident, and co-resident with both parents, co-resident with a surviving parent, and living alone. Using life tables and probability methods, we find up to age 60, the bare branch male faces cumulative probability of 0.8 to 0.6 for his father and mother's death, respectively. The definition of the age at which bare branch status is initialized influences the length of the stages. As the childbearing age of parents increases, the age of the bare branch at the death of his parents decreases, and the duration of his lifestyle alone lengthens. An increase in the mother's childbearing age, holding that of the father's constant, shortens the age of co-residence with both parents and the lengths the stage of living alone. So basically, this is studying the effects of these men's life cycles and being unmarried, and you might find that interesting as well. So I'll add that too. That's in the National Library of Medicine. Let me go back here. So that was my attempt to basically try to clarify that, because I think he got undue criticism, Kevin, by exploring this term from a Western point of view. And pretty much we all know that if it's not covered in, a few seconds, that these women are not going to read it, unless they'll read it to get back at you or to try to prove you wrong. They'll glimpse over it and try to basically make you look stupid. But other than that, to try to actually understand the concept and the ramifications of what's going on, they don't care anything about that. It's all selfishness. It's all me, and damn society. And I think that's just a part of where we are right now. Everything is just looked upon from an individual basis, and what do I get out of it? And I think we unfortunately we've been split up into just different teams. It's you got Team Woman over here, you got Team Family, you got Team Men, and you got Team whatever other social group is put up, and everybody wants their piece, and nobody really wants the traditional folks to win or to have any wins. But traditionalism has to exist in order for us to continue to have the type of society that you guys enjoy. You out here ripping and running the streets and all that. You have to have some people who are traditional to maintain that. Everybody can't be, everybody can't be whores. You know what I mean? You got to have some traditional people over here. You got to have some street folks. You got to have some strippers. Everybody has their place in the machine. But you can't have too much of any one thing. There has to be balance. And anytime we come out and we show this, then we're ridiculed for talking about this type of information and what it's doing to our society. But you know what? The Chinese are looking, and they see that our society is a fucking mess. You see all of these other societies, these smaller societies that didn't have to worry about all this stuff. Now, all of a sudden, as they prosper and they become more like the United States, socially, and economically, they're starting to have the same social problems that we're having here. And they see what it's doing here. It's tearing our society apart. And it's doing them the same. That's why they're saying, hey, we got to stop this. We got to stop this at all costs, and you have, like the little black lady on the last show who basically goes over and she's like, oh, this just breaks my heart that everybody's going backwards, but you don't see it from their perspective. You don't see that your point of view or the point of view that you are embracing is basically it's damaging what you love about that country, which is its difference from the way our country is. So, that's what you have to take into consideration when you're looking at this. I appreciate everybody, hanging out with me and exploring this topic. And we'll do it again soon.
I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home. A long way from